What's up, y'all? Welcome back to another video. I'm Paquetia, and in this series of videos, I have been talking about just reevaluating and restructuring my small business and really kind of some of the things that I have been able to do some reflection on and figure out how I arrived at this place where I feel like I really need to either pivot or just make some significant changes before I move forward. So today's video is all about customer demographics. I really want to spend some time talking about why and how I decided to pick a lane that really included my target audience. And so if you're interested in learning and just getting a better understanding of how you should identify who your target audience is, who your customer is, and some of the mistakes that I made early on in my business, stick around. I think it's going to be fun. Okay, so before we jump into really talking about how I decided who my customer was going to be and all that good stuff, I think it's appropriate to give you a little background on how I even got here, right? So I started my business officially in 2019. I have been coaching junior employees for a number of years. And so I really wanted to kind of branch out on my own from a coaching perspective. And really, my coaching perspective is more about personal development and understanding how you're supposed to navigate certain spaces that you're in and giving you the tools and the resources to be able to do that with some efficiencies. I am a certified career development coach. I'm an organizational coach. I am a certified Scrum Master. And soon I will be a certified Agile leader. And I'm excited about that. But all of those things really attribute to my ability to do what I do really effectively. So I wanted to branch out from my professional spaces and in my corporate spaces, coaching employees, to being able to share that knowledge outside of the corporate environment. Because as we know, the things that you do in your 9 to 5, you do not necessarily replicate them in your day to day. And for whatever reason, we don't really think that's necessary. We don't have performance plans when it comes to our personal lives, and that's just not a good thing. So I wanted to create a resource that really taught lay people how to effectively manage their time and their performance. And thus, Hayward Love was born. I started with a flagship product that is called the Strategy Journal. And it is a very comprehensive planning tool. So it's more than just managing, scheduling, things like that. It walks you through your full calendar year, breaking down your different quarters, and it also teaches you how to manage and define success for your performance goals. So that's the thing, right? Like, that's kind of my origin story. That's my villain song, if you will. And so Hayward Love really evolved from that. We started in 2019, branching out, working with one-on-one clients. We were taking them through 8-week coaching and personal development program focused on career development. I guess I should say that first because, again, I'm a career development coach. And so my primary focus was teaching my career clients how to pivot, how to transition. These were usually people who, unbeknownst to all of us, within the next couple of months, were probably going to be out of work because of the pandemic. And so here we are. The Strategy Journal took off. It really became a big thing amongst that audience. Fast forward a couple years, I wanted to branch out and create other performance products that were not as granular as the Strategy Journal. And so that led us to creating our weekly top 10 task management planner. And it also allowed me to create my monthly organizer and the Daily Grace Journal. We also have notebooks and other products, but those are really our core performance products. And so it was really important for me to make sure that my identified audience understood how to grow efficiently with their personal development goals and routines, that they understood how to manage their time, and they could clearly and articulately define Yeah, that's right. Define what a priority is. All right. So now that we have some background information about me and Hayward and Love as a company, I want to spend some time sharing with you some of the things that I've learned as it related to me trying to identify who my customer was going to be and who am I going to sell my products to, and how are they going to find me, right? So these are my list. This is my list of 3 things, my top 3 things that I realized that I needed to do in order to figure out who my customers were and honestly what I need to change about that process. All right, so let's just jump into my 3 points, okay? So the first thing that I have learned is it's really important to know the difference between your target audience and your target customer. I feel like people use those phrases interchangeably, but they're really not the same thing. And here's why it's not. Because your target audience is really the people that you will talk to. It's a crowd, right? It is just a sea of potential opportunities. Your target audience may have some behaviors or attributes that tell you as the business owner that, hey, these people are likely to like what your product is. They have some behaviors and some patterns that will tell you that this might be your customer could be in this population of people, but you really just don't know. You have to just pay attention to what the audience does, how they behave, how they interact with your information and your content and all of that stuff. Within your target audience, you are more than likely to find your target customer, the person who's actually going to spend money on the thing that you're selling. The audience and the customer are not necessarily the same people, but it is more than likely that your customer is interested in the same stuff that your audience is interested in. I hope that makes sense. I didn't know that going into this. I thought that everybody was the same. I needed to recognize who the right audience was, what's the pool of people that I needed to be talking to, and the things that I need to talk to them about. That's really where I was going to find my customer. So figuring out the difference. Now, fast forward several years, I also realized that those people who started as my customer or those people who started as part of my audience, they're not the same people today. Because my business has just grown, our products have grown, and what I do it a lot differently. Some of my core tenets and foundational things are still very much the same. However, I've expanded my palette a little bit. So I'm not just focused on the career development piece, right? I have broadened that conversation to include your personal development aspirations and things like that. So not all of those people were in it for the long haul. And to their credit, right? Once you find your next job opportunity, you don't really need a career development coach. You don't need someone to help you navigate the job market. You don't really need someone to help you navigate having interviews and those conversations. You don't need that long term and ongoing. So it made sense for that part of that demographic to kind of fall off. And it made sense for me to figure out how do I keep that stream flowing, right? Because it's not, it's almost like a one and done, right? Once you are successfully getting someone hired, then what else is there for you to say? You said what you said and it worked and they've moved on. So, I mean, it was great, but that part of my business, I realized that I didn't enjoy it because I did not maintain the long-term relationships, right? And so some of my business really is relational. It is not just in the product sales piece. All right. So recognizing your target audience versus your target customer. It's really important that you need to know that. And you need to know when that changes. Okay. So the other thing is recognizing how your potential customer identifies with you and how you identify with them. Like that is really important to know that when you are pitching your product or when you are placing your product in the market, people usually make purchases off emotion. How does your product make them feel about a problem that they are trying to solve? How does your product make them feel about a experience that they're about to have What emotions does it exude from them? What are the things that they're going to take away when they have your product? Um, and I think it's a two-way street. It shouldn't just be how the customer feels. It's how do you feel about your customer? So what is the experience that you plan to have with your customers? And I know a lot of people think it's just the sale. You just want to sell them a service. You just want to sell them a product. But again, people are driven emotionally. Um, and good, bad, or indifferent. You want to make sure that there is something in the relationship, in the transaction, that anchors them to what the end result should be. That's really how you draw them in and you kind of win them and you win them again. I realized that over time, like I said, not every relationship or not every transaction was enjoyable for me. Um, and so I needed to reevaluate how I was going to move forward beyond that, because what I didn't want to do is continue to have new clients, or new product placements or new sales, where I felt like I had to convince you that this was the right thing to do. I'm just not a salesy person like that. And I'm going to give you information, and I'm going to share what I believe to be the very best practice that I can offer you based on my own experiences, and my own knowledge and skill set, right? And if I want to make space for you to make a decision based on the information that I provided you. What I'm not going to do is beg you or try to barter with you. You are free to walk away at any time. It's in all of my contracts, it's in my terms. I was very specific with my attorney when we were writing up stuff to make sure you can leave at any time. No harm, no foul. So I think understanding how you wanted to interact, with your customers, with your services, and what is the expectation that you have as an end result is really important when you're trying to figure out who your customer is and you settle on a lane. All right. So the last one is, I feel like, really important, and it is I think it's a very sensitive topic given, um, just given our society and given kind of our overall culture. I am, I am a Black woman-owned business. However, there are some categories in my business designation that I could ascribe to, right? They could be my target audience and my target customer. It could be Black people, it could be Black women, it could just be women. So the last one is niche or don't niche. And I initially started my business with the intent to focus solely on individual contributors. Individual contributors, if you don't know, are, basically people who are not middle management. They do not manage people. They manage, processes, and they contribute to a significant end goal, right? And so part of my job as a professional and as a business owner, I wanted to make sure that individual contributors understood the nuances of career movement, right? As a result, I wanted to kind of demystify, that performance management and performance planning process. And my, stationery products, specifically the strategy journal, really it was intended to be a resource for that population of people. Now, the individual contributor could have been male, female, any ethnicity, whatever. At some point, because the majority of my clients were women, I started to craft my messaging, so that it would be more specific towards professional women. And I was fine with that. To this day, I was still cool with that. Where it got kind of wonky for me is where somewhere in that discussion, my messaging was interpreted to be specifically for Black women. which was never the case for me. And while women, specifically the needs of Black women, is certainly a priority and a preference, um, I would give I would give deference to spaces that honored and acknowledged the professional challenges that Black women had. I also wanted to make sure that I created the same space for women in general. But then I also had men who purchased my strategy journal. So now I needed to create a space that also did the same thing for men. And the reason is because I didn't want to neglect a demographic, an audience that was actively engaged with me and my product. And so it got tricky from the sense that I was uncertain about the balance of my messaging, and I really wanted to make sure that my messaging was clear. But because the population of women clients and customers was just significantly larger, and to this day, it is. Um, Although my YouTube analytics, more men seem to watch my videos, which I think is interesting, but whatever. Um, but still the population of my customer demographic is women. um Even drilling down into that a little bit further, I realized that mothers that are kind of late 20s, mid 30s are really a strong candidate to being kind of my premier customer demographic. But their purchasing trends is a little bit different. They are not focused so much on the strategy journal. They focus on our weekly planner, and sometimes even our monthly, but predominantly our weekly planner. So it was really important for me to recognize kind of how I was positioning my messaging around my products and around my services. Um, I did not want to I did not want to, uh, for lack of a better word, disappoint any customer that I had by neglecting their needs. However, I also did not want to stretch myself too thin and trying to be everything to every customer. Um, so it took me a while to get here to say, niche, but don't niche. Now I recognize that there are certain facets of my business, of my product and my services, that each one of those subgroups are focused on, and it matters more to them than it matters to anyone else. And here's the breakdown. So I have a couple different stationery products, and I may have mentioned it already. My flagship product is the strategy journal, which is completely performance management. It goes through the full annual cycle, breaking it up into the 4 quarters. The strategy journal is primarily, if I focus on male customers, that is solely where they land. They focus on the strategy journal. And as a professional and as from a learning perspective, I certainly understand that. Because professional men seem to be more grounded when they can articulate their worth and their value and their accomplishments. So it makes sense that men gravitate to the strategy journal. Women initially will look at the strategy journal and without handholding, unless they have some handholding, will assume this is just too much. I'm not going to keep up with it. I really wouldn't know how to use this. And that's fair. Women who are professional, they're working, they have children, they have kid activities, they have community activities. They are more focused on the granular effects of how they're spending their time. And so for that population, it is definitely my monthly organizer or my weekly top 10 task list. They want to understand and they want to get better at how do I identify things that are priorities? Where are the bottlenecks, the obstacles in my time? Where can I free up my time? How do I enjoy more of my time? Then there are those I will say, just kind of falling into a general category. I just love stationery, period. I love the idea. I romanticize what it means to plan stuff. And so they kind of love any one of the cycles, any one of our notepads or our desk pads, or they like the weekly, but they also have like other weekly planners. They also have some daily planner things, so they kind of will just fall into whatever. They just like our products because they like our products. And shout out to all of y'all. I love you too. I left out specifying Black women. So the messaging around uh, just addressing and creating a message that was specific to Black women was around our resiliency and the fact that we are constantly, culturally, we are kind of nurtured to be able to manage a number of things. It's really the idea of, like I said, resiliency, but also if nobody else is going to do it, I'll do it, or I'll do it myself because I need it to be done right. Things like that. It is not a cultural norm for, I will say, for many of us, for many Black women, to proceed with the idea of delegating first. Generationally, yes, this generation certainly delegates a little bit more than my generation, but it's just not a social norm. And so part of my messaging was, when I would enter into groups that were predominantly Black women, it was really our weekly task planner, right? Because this is about identifying task definitions. This is about clearly articulating what a priority is. And just because somebody else did not do it doesn't mean that it is your priority to get it done. One of the stark differences that we know between men and women, statistics aside, me making generalizations, men are more apt to delegate. Men are more apt to tell somebody else what they need to be doing and how they want something done. Women are socialized to take a softer approach and not necessarily feel like, I want to be bossy or things like that. So when it comes to just managing your time and your priorities versus managing your time and somebody else's priorities, the messaging was always around our task development and our time management. So it would be, the messaging from me would be our weekly top 10 task planner. Market research probably would have told me and prepared me a little bit better early on, but I really didn't have anything to compare that to. So I really didn't know what I would have been looking for. And so it's kind of difficult to make that assessment. So today, this is how I niche, and I don't niche. I recognize that my performance planning resources, the strategy journal, that is a resource for someone who is looking to execute against a very specific goal. They've got some targeted things they want to accomplish. They've got some milestones they want to hit, and they just want something that's going to help them build out a framework so that they can just create a good routine. I understand that person can fall in any one of those categories. So what I have decided and what I've learned is that I will still focus on those subcategories. But the true message behind the power of my product and my services is performance and task management. I focus on the product and the end result after using the product. I focus on the service and the end result after using the service. I explain how the value will fit into the life of the person that falls within the target audience or the target demographic. But I don't necessarily seek out Black women to sell my products to, mothers to sell my product to, professional men to sell my products. I'm not looking for those people. When I envision my customer today, I don't envision that. What I envision is someone who needs to get a better handle on their time, someone who really needs to understand where they are wasting their time, how to pull things in, how to show progress, how to meet those milestones, and how to keep it pushing. That's what I'm envisioning when I think about the person who's interested in Hayward and Love products or Hayward and Love services. I need to be so crystal clear about who and what Hayward and Love is all about, that the customer that I have and the audience that I'm talking to, that they want to evolve with me. And I want them to. And that hasn't always been the case. But that's not a bad thing. We are self-reflecting, we are introspective, and we are moving forward with grace and understanding. And I think at the end of the day, that's really the beauty of owning a small business and growing a small business, right? Like it's like having a kid. You're learning and you're evolving. I am sharing this part of my journey with you because I'm hoping that somebody will see this, and no matter where they are in whatever part of their journey, that you will feel like you have permission. Not you will feel like it. You will know that you have permission to make adjustments at any point in time if it no longer feels good, if it no longer feels sustainable, if it no longer brings you joy. You can just make some changes. I think that's really the point of this series, is make the changes, pivot, adjust. It's going to be uncomfortable, and it may really put you up against some ridicule or a lot of questions that you don't really know how to answer. If somebody asked me, well, but everything seems like it was going great and you guys seem like you were making money and blah, 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 why are you making these changes? Because I know it's not right. I know continuing on the trajectory that I was on, it's just not right. And because I know, that's all that matters. So anyway, if you stuck around to the end of this video, shout out to you. Thank you so very much. I really do appreciate it. Definitely like the video. If you were here for this long, then please leave me a comment and let me know what your thoughts are, or share your experience. I would love to hear from you. Definitely click that like button, subscribe for sure. And if you want to learn more about Hayward and Love, then visit us online at haywardandlove.com, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.